here we are, the final race of the weekend already here at Brands Hatch, and it's the reverse grid race in the GB4 Championship. Chloe Grant will start on pole with Logan Hannah, her teammate, third. Jessica Edgar sandwiched in between them in her Fortec car. So it's going to be very interesting to see if those front runners we saw a little bit earlier on, the likes of Nicholas Taylor, the championship leader, or Jared Waberski, or Jack Sherwood, or Tom Mills, can make it through the pack and get those all-important points. Now, earlier on today, tributes were paid to Her Majesty the Queen after her sad passing on Thursday. There was a 2-minute silence, and a lot of the drivers and the teams from all of the different championships competing here at Brands Hatch stopped for a moment to pay their respects. A very touching moment there as everyone here at Brands Hatch paid their respects to Her Majesty the Queen after her sad passing on Thursday. Now let's look ahead to the racing here, Piers. Now we've had exciting races throughout the year in GB4. Now we're outside Graham Brunton racing with laser tools, and I feel like in that second race there we haven't seen the Graham Brunton girls kind of like challenging much. We saw some decent moves there. Chloe Grant pulled an exceptional move on the inside. I forget who it was on. Logan Hannah also looked good until that incident where she span out onto the grass. And weirdly, while I was watching that, I know you were commentating, I was thinking, oh, she's not going to hit anything. She's not going to hit anything. It's fine, she's not going to hit anything. Bosh. Took the nose cone off just at the last minute, and I'm just thinking, that's expensive.
Yeah, it's one of those where that corner of Westfield, we know that once you get a wheel off the exit of the curb, the car bottoms out, you're a passenger, and especially once you get on that grass, with it being so wet and the trees overhanging there, you're on a one-way ticket. It's so slippery out there, which is part of the challenge of Brands Hatch. We've been speaking to a lot of the drivers about the unique challenge we have here. It's a great driver's circuit, but the margins are so fine, and that's what makes it such a unique circuit. You drop a wheel off the curb, you're in the barrier, whereas places like, not belittling Silverstone at all because it's an amazing circuit, but you've got a lot of runoff there. You drop a wheel on the exit of the curb, it's fine, you carry on. Round here, race over. Yeah, very much so. But let's look at what happened in that race. We came into it at Max Maserati level on points with Nicholas Taylor after what happened yesterday. But Nick getting that win has really put a gap between him and Max Maserati. And going into this final race now, it's going to be interesting because, say for example, Nick has a moment again and doesn't finish the race, and Max manages to get on the podium. That means going into the final round at Donington, it's going to be really exciting. I feel like it's going to be really exciting anyway, and I don't know about you, Piers, but I feel like Max can still pull this back. I think the gap's getting quite large. Again, it's only one race now because they were tied before the previous race. Nicholas Taylor had an excellent race. Max struggled a lot in that last one. We're hoping to catch up with him maybe and see what was up with there because he didn't have the pace he's shown before. But I think if Nicholas Taylor has another race like he did at Silverstone in race 3 where he comes through the field and potentially wins or gets on a podium from the back of the grid, then it's looking hard for Max to be able to win this championship with the pace that Nicholas Taylor has been showing more recently. Yeah, so let's have a look at the standings now. Nicholas Taylor, obviously the new championship leader, as I mentioned there, just forging ahead slightly. And I think that, going in, and I've talked to loads of drivers about this, but going into the final round, all the drivers want to be ahead. So Nicholas Taylor, 450 points now. He's got an 18-point gap over Max Maserati in second. Jared Waberski, he could still he could still win the whole thing, but he could still come second, I think. 395 points, driving very consistently for Kevin Mills Racing. Tom Mills, his teammate, just behind him on 364 points. Jack Sherwood in the Elite Motorsports car, 353. He's in 5th place. Then we've got Megan Jilks with Hillspeed, 342 in 6th. Alex, who only did pretty much half the season, didn't he? Alex Walker with Elite, 244 in 7th. And then we have Jessica Edgar, Logan Hannah, Chloe Grant, Elias Ardestam, Christian Lester, and Lucas Romanek, who actually won a race, didn't he? And only competed in that one round and still won a race. So a good table there. As I said, I still think that Max Maserati can do it. Hopefully we'll catch up with him before the race starts there. But in terms of the race we just discussed, we should probably see what it was like. This is the second race in the GB4 Championship earlier today here at Brands Hatch.
The second race of the weekend would see Nick Taylor starting from pole position. A bad start though for Logan Hannah in the background, still on the grid. She dropped to the rear of the field. Jared Roberski straight on the attack going through the first corner, but he'd have to look backwards into his mirrors because Tom Mills was on the charge. He'd get around the outside. The two teammates for Kevin Mills Racing would make a little bit of contact in the middle of the corner and a big bit of contact on the exit. That would give Tom Mills a front puncture on the car, and unfortunately he would drop right back nearly into the side there of Max Maserati. He'd get around the outside, the same with Jack Sherwood. Maserati though was struggling with issues through the race, getting dropped backwards. A great move from Chloe Grant, now another great one from Jess Edgar, both down the inside, getting through some of the corners. Logan Hannah though, the bravest of them all, to get to the inside of Max Maserati coming up through Sheen Curve. That takes an awful lot of bravery. Unfortunately this though, a bit of a mistake for Logan Hannah late in the race. She'd got her way up in the 6th position, but that would be very costly indeed, into the barrier as well and out of the race. Nick Taylor, wow, I mean, what can you say about him after the issues yesterday? He bounced back with aplomb and comes across the line to take his 9th victory in GB4 ahead of Roberski and Jack Sherwood.
So we're just chatting about Logan, and I've managed to come down to the Graham Brunson Racing with Laser Tools team here, and we've grabbed Logan. Logan, talk to us about your weekend so far.
Well, we decided to not do the Friday test. I think 4 festivals later you've seen enough of the Indy circuit, and with the Grand Prix loop there's only 3 of those corners that we use. So I decided to spend a day at base simulators instead, and you'd argue that it worked. 2-ish seconds found from when we were here last week, and what could have been a 4th place qualifying if I hadn't dropped my rear wheel so conveniently onto a sensor. And you can't argue with a picture, so that was kind of the end of that. But so far it's not kind of been as good as qualifying was. A mistake in race 1 before the start of the race handed me a 10-second penalty, which then you kind of couldn't come back from. And then in race 2, stalling off the start, making what was probably going to be quite a good comeback based on the times that I had been posting, but dropping a wheel on the grass, and that was the end of race 2. But race 3, we've won from further back. So if the pace continues as it has been doing in the other 2 races, I'm sure we'll be able to make something good of it.
Yeah, a lot of positives from this weekend so far. You've got some great pace. You feel like you've gained a lot. We've spoken about it before when we were at the simulator venue in Milton Keynes before we were at, was that Silverstone, I think. Yeah. So you're back at base. Just tell us again why you think that's so valuable for you.
Well, 2-hour slot with my driver coach was there, Johnny Adam as well. So you would argue that 4 30-minute sessions on the Grand Prix loop, you get more out of those 2 hours. You could do 2 laps, pick something up. Not only are they able to say it straight into yours because you're wearing a headset, but you can jump out, have a look at the data and go straight back in without having to wait an hour, 2 hours for another session. Incredibly realistic, the way that simulators are nowadays. And I thought I would struggle going into qualifying having not been in the car, but everyone else was kind of umming and ahhing about having to readjust to the Grand Prix loop. I didn't have any of that. I'd spent 2 hours the day before doing the Grand Prix circuit and went straight out doing exactly what I did before, and went faster than I went in the sim. So it was just piecing it all together, which worked out.
Oh, that's great, and it's a great circuit, isn't it? You enjoying driving the circuit?
Oh, loving it, absolutely loving it. It's a proper driver's circuit. I love the Brands Indy anyways, so being able to incorporate that and continue up to the left rather than going to the right, no, loving every moment of it. I do wish it had been wet yesterday, but wet before the lights went out at the start of the race. That would have been ideal. If it had rained before, I think we would have had a good race, but on slicks in these cars and the wet round here as well, I don't think that's a recipe for disaster, if you're asking me.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool circuit. I'm sure all the drivers are loving it. You said you loved it. Let's have a look on board a GB4 car around this Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Here we ride on board Nicholas Taylor, our championship leader and winner of the George Russell Pole Position Cup. Brands Hatch GP circuit, what a circuit it is. The world famous Paddock Hill bend, dropping downhill, 1 and 3 drop down. Car bottoms out heavily at the bottom. We then move into Druids Corner, braking nice and straight over the crest, try not to lock a wheel there. Then we go downhill from Druids to Graham Hill. Keep it right quickly to open up the entry. Use all the track on the right hand side. Don't run wide on exit. There is a pressure sensor there. If you run wide, a photo will be taken and sent to the stewards. So we go left now onto the Grand Prix loop through Surtees Corner. Again, a lot of elevation change through here, going uphill at the exit. Not too much curve because the car will bottom out once again. Now a bit of a breather down Pilgrim's Drop under the bridge with the Hawthorns Corner, which is so much commitment into here. Barely a break. I think that's just a lift there. so fast through there, and again, no margin for error on the exit. We then have Westfield, which is a double right-hander, so first apex there, out to the curb, don't run too wide, a second kink there. We then go down and then up towards Sheen curve, full commitment, completely blind, use the curb on the right-hand side, and no curb on the exit, so don't touch that grass. We then have Sterling's, a banked left-hand corner. Again, don't go wide on the exit because there's no margin for error. And now the last corner, Clark curve. So fast, so much commitment. Track falls around the exit, so don't run wide. A little bit of a wobble there, but kept it nice and clean, and pole position for Nicholas Taylor in race 1. A great lap, and we're looking forward to some great racing.
Well, here he is. We said we'd catch up with him. Max Maserati. Always a big smile on your face, Max, but it's not really been going how you want this weekend. I mean, do we know what the issue is with pace?
Not yet. We know there's something fundamentally wrong, but we haven't found it. It's quite worrying. We think there's always something affecting both cars because we've gone from a double pole position at Silverstone to being the 2 slowest cars in the grid. So something's just not right. I've got trust in these boys that, you know, we'll try and sort out whatever it was, and we'll go into the reverse grid race. But, you know, that race was terrifying for me because we went from, I thought, okay, we got up into thirds. Jared and Taylor have had a pace advantage over me this weekend, but Sherwood I felt quite well matched with through qualifying the race, and he passed me quite easily, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's annoying, but we can hang on to 4th now, and I jumped like a stone. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And the only person who couldn't do anything about me was Megan, because she seemed to be suffering with something as well. So we'll see what we can do, but it's...
Yeah, it's obviously disappointing to see because you know that you've had the pace this season, you know you've got the pace in you as a team and as a driver, but it seemed to my eyes like it was getting worse throughout the race. Was that what you were feeling, or did you just think that race was something not quite there?
No, it felt like it was the whole race, and I was like overcompensating the whole race to try and, like me, it was quite interesting because we look at the day and me and Megan were driving 2 very different ways to try and get around it. And it didn't seem like, you know, either of them really worked sufficiently that could take us up. You know, there's a couple tenths between us, but then it's like a second to the next car and then another second to the front of the grid. We haven't been that far off anywhere throughout the season. Even we were struggling with engine power at Snetterton. We were still running about there, and we managed to make the most of it. In fact, we take the championship lead there with that. And here we're just nothing. There's nothing you could do. It felt like when you're playing like iRacing, and you know when you can like change the way the track grips, and it felt like we were on one setting and everyone else was on another.
I'm sure it's something that you and the team can get round, and of course you'll be pushing on in the final race.
Yeah.
The gap's only 18 points in the championship. I know it opened out a little bit in that last one, which is disappointing. However, if you just start the season saying that you're 18 points off the championship lead going into the final 4 races of the season, would you have taken that?
Yeah, I would have taken that. You know, it's kind of, looking back, you kind of go, it's almost like a privilege to be this disappointed.
Yep.
That you're going into, you know, and the fact is there's still a reverse grid race, so we could still come out of this maybe, I don't know, 12 points behind Nick, and that's only a difference between first and second twice, which is exactly what we have coming up. Yep. So it's still all to play for. Anything can happen. You know, Nick still has to get past however many drivers in this last race with no contact. So everything's going to be up in the air. You never know what twists and turns are going to come. But I think the thing that's scary for me is in the previous races, we've had the pace no matter what to kind of deal with it all. When that's suddenly taken away from you, it becomes a lot harder because there is nothing you can do. There's only so much damage limitation you can do at that point. But as I say, I do have the belief in this team, and we know we can do it. We were running with them all yesterday. We were running with them all, you know, qualifying. We've been running with them all season. At Silverstone, we were the quickest. They've just given me the fastest lap award for that, as a bit of irony.
Use that to spur you on, I think. Yeah.
So we know if we get it right, we'll be there for this last race. But I won't know if we've sorted it until that one. So we'll find out.
Hopefully you do.
We know what kind of driver you are. We've talked about how you are consistent. We gave you the nickname Mr. Consistency way before George Russell apparently stole it.
Yeah.
And we know that Nick Taylor, you know, does have a mistake in him because he sometimes pushes too hard. So that must be, you know, good in your mind to know that, you know, you are limiting the damage, I guess, from this weekend. But there is always a chance that it may be actually only a very small amount.
Yeah, it's true. You know, reality is if we came out of it with the same points that we came into the weekend in a weird kind of way, that is damage limitation in itself, because we haven't had the pace that Nick has had. And after the disaster with what happened in the race one at Silverstone, it's kind of like, well, like as long as we go into the last race with a chance, we will not stop fighting.
Yeah.
You know, so we have got this. We know we've got the pace, especially at Donington. We know we have the pace. We almost had that win before there. So we're gonna keep pushing Nick right to the end of the season.
You are indeed. We've got to let you go to the assembly area now, and that's where me and Piers are going to head in just a second. In the meantime, Max Maserati with Hill Speed, thank you so much. Best of luck. And we'll just take one final look at the track we're racing at this weekend here at Brands Hatch.
Well, to West Kingsdown in Kent we head, and to Brands Hatch for the penultimate race weekend of the season. What a fantastic circuit. It's such a historic one, having been run in the Indy layout since the early 30s. It's been run time and time again, backwards, forwards, when it was dirt. It's been an incredible venue for motorsport inside the United Kingdom, with the Grand Prix loop, which will be running this weekend. It is one for the brave. So many great corners around here when you come through Paddock Hill up towards Druids, that entire Grand Prix loop with Hawthorns, Westfield and Sheen Curve up towards Stirlings. It is a track which requires bravery, it requires commitment, and it requires absolutely no fear.
Here we are in the assembly area for the final time this weekend here at Brands Hatch. It's been a great weekend of racing, hasn't it, Piers? We've seen quite a lot of stoppages in races, but then it's kind of, that's bred some amazing racing afterwards.
Absolutely it has. The first race of the weekend in GB4 was action-packed. We saw the rain coming down, causing our championship leader Nicholas Taylor to unfortunately have an incident ending his race, which then brought at the end of the race Max Maserati level on points, but then the last race Nicholas Taylor dominant victory. Max Maserati unfortunately only managed to salvage 6th place, so the gap is now 18 points, I believe.
18 points, and some of the great racing we saw in that first race came from the two Kevin Mills racing cars, the grey and blue cars here, but also Jack Sherwood in the Elite Motorsports car that's just parked in front of them here in the quite strange setup we've got here. And I believe, Piers, you think that he's probably Jack Sherwood the favourite to win this race?
I reckon he's probably the favourite to win this race. Unfortunately, the top three, of Chloe Grant, Jess Edgar and Logan Hannah haven't quite had the pace of the rest of the field this weekend. Jack Sherwood looked very racy in race 1, getting up to the lead, but unfortunately just losing that lead on the final lap, and then in race 2 was closing down the leaders. He actually had the fastest lap of the race for a while. I don't know if he ended up with the fastest lap of the race, I can't remember, but yeah, he's been very fast. He looked racy, and I think he's hungry for another podium and hopefully top step. So that's my call for the victory.
So the championship leader is Nicholas Taylor, who's just ahead of us here, number 66, the Fortec car. And I mean, coming from the back here, it's going to be very interesting to see how many places he can make up. He is the championship leader with Max Maserati 3 places ahead of him. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in this final GB4 race of the year. Of the weekend. I'll get a little ahead of myself there. As we see people run, you go and run and do the commentary. Piers has to run and do the commentary. I didn't actually realise Piers here to go and run and do the commentary. He has to run along the whole pit straight. He has to run down some stairs. He has to go under the track. He has to go up the stairs. He has to then go upstairs in a building. So actually, I've got a lot more respect for Piers than I had a little bit earlier on. But as we can see, all of the support staff here walking out. Let's follow them. We haven't followed them yet this weekend. Let's see if we can get down the end of the pit straight here. The sun's kind of not setting as such, but the cloud has come in here at Brands Hatch, so the heat has kind of gone now. It's getting a little bit cooler, so it will take a little bit longer for the drivers to heat their tyres up on the track here. I imagine the track temperature probably hasn't dropped off quite as much as the heat, that you'd feel in the air. And I'll just walk down here very, very carefully. Good etiquette. Yeah, so I mentioned just before, Max Maserati, 18 points behind the championship leader Nicholas Taylor, but he is 3 places ahead of him. So for Nicholas Taylor, I mean, he's going to want to make sure he gets a few places from the start. But remember, the faster drivers are actually at the back of the grid this time. He does have Megan Jokes behind. Megan Jokes was actually slower in the qualification. She actually missed out on the 103%, which means that she would have started at the front of the grid, which is a disappointment for her and the Hill Speed team. But we'll be interested to see what she can do from the back of the grid. In terms of Nicholas Taylor, then, I reckon a few early places, if he makes them up, if he can get near to Max Maserati, all he's got to do really is match, and then he's going into the final weekend as the championship leader with a bit of a gap. Then it's all for Max Maserati to do. We mentioned with Max a little bit before that Nicholas can make a few mistakes, so maybe that's something that Max will have in the back of his mind. He'll play it a bit smarter. And now the cars are going out, so it's time to hand over to Piers Pryor and your commentator Lewis McGlade.
Yes, indeed. We both have a lot of respect for Piers Pryor, who's still making his run all the way to the commentary booth. The final race of the weekend about to get underway. The formation lap beginning. This is a big one. It's been a big one for the championship this weekend. I mean, it was separated by 0 points after the first race of the weekend. It's now separated by 18 advantage to Nick Taylor after his 9th victory of the season. Could it be 10? We'll have to wait and see. I kind of agree with the boys down there. I think it might be a Jack Sherwood race after such good pace over the weekend. He had the fastest lap in the previous race. He's had back-to-back podiums here with a 2nd and a 3rd. That said, do not count out Jared Waberski, who's been so fast and so consistent with 3 thirds, a 2nd place, maybe looking to go 1 step higher on the podium and take another victory of the season. He's looking for his 3rd win. I mean, Jack Sherwood's looking for his 2nd. We'll have to wait and see. Let's take a look at the starting grid. Chloe Grant will start from pole position. She had a great race last time out, scoring out her best result of the year. Jess Edgards have her best weekend of the season with top 5s in both opening races. Logan Hannah and Jack Sherwood, maybe your pick for the race win, might be mine as well. Starts from 4th place. Max Maserati in 5th. Tom Mills in 6th place, of course, after that puncture in the previous race. Then we get Jared Waberski and championship leader Nick Taylor starting from 8th place. Megan Chilks was outside the 103% rule, and so she will start from 9th place. She missed out by a whopping 16 thousandths of a second. A big shame indeed, but as the sun does indeed start to dip below the horizon, I think it caused any problems around here, but you know, as you get covered by the trees over this side, you shouldn't really block any braking zones being blinded by the light.
A lovely scenic shot there of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix loop. It's wonderful to be here. Lovely, turned into a lovely late summer's afternoon, and what a time to go racing.
It really has very much contrast to the weather that we were expecting coming into the weekend. Friday, it went from weather like this to absolutely bucketing it down in about 5 minutes. Yesterday, it was just sprinkles all the way. Now this race, in what I'm going to say is almost perfect race conditions, you think Jack Sherwood, Jess Edgar's had great pace this weekend. She's had 2 top 5s, but I kind of see where you're coming from.
Jessica has had great pace, and she's been showing some real improvement towards the end of the year. She's been not far away on pace, but I just think the pace of Jack Sherwood in that race 2, and the fact that it was nearly there in race 1, he'll be wanting to finish off the weekend with a win, and I can't see it going any other way unless Jack, of course, has an issue himself, but it all depends again on the start. If one of these guys, and all girls, or one of these drivers get away well at the start and pull a lead early on, then it's going to be hard to overcome.
We are also counting out Nicholas Taylor, who definitely can't get the triple this weekend after retirement in the first race, but he might well look for back-to-back victories. We'll have to wait and see. The 9 cars will line up on the grid, and you can see the aggressive line that Jared Waberski has right towards the back there, starting from 7th position. We'll get underway for round 21 of the GB4 Championship, partnered by the BRDC. Let's see who's going to lead down to someone. Another stall, though, from Logan Hannah. Oh, once again, she had one in race 2. She's had one once again, and she'll struggle to get back going again. Jess Edgar, though, trying to take over the race lead from Chloe Grant, who might hang on to it as they head down Paddock Hill. But look at Jack Sherwood straight on the attack. Look at Nick Taylor. He's already alongside Max Maserati. Big lockup coming down into Druids. Big moment there from Nick Taylor straight around the outside. Jack Sherwood's already got up in the 2nd position. The championship rivals going side by side. Jack Sherwood down the inside, looking to attack for the race lead. Chloe Grant runs out a bit wide. This might be it done up towards Surtees.
Sherwood at the inside, still going into Surtees. He went on the inside of Graham. Oh, is there going to be contact? Oh, Chloe Grant closing the door firmly in Jack Sherwood's face there.
Yeah, hopefully that wasn't too bad. Jack Sherwood, wow, he likes to go around the outside. We're going to see it once again, all the way up towards Hawthorns. We go down Pilgrim Drop and up the rise towards Hawthorns. Big moment there for Sherwood, straight around the outside and bang, the race lead. The 2 Fortec cars switch positions as well. Nick Taylor up to 4th place in this race. He is marching forward. Max Maserati comes through as well. Jess Edgar's going backwards.
Waberski has not made the ground that I thought he would at the start of this race, considering how well he's been starting this year, but he's making some manoeuvres now. That is very close going through Sheen.
That was so close. Yes, you're absolutely right. That is the position made up from Waberski, who now is... Oh, big moment there. Max Maserati out wide, coming through Sterling's, now down towards the final corner at Clark's. He's inside the top 5, but he is behind his championship rival, who's heading his way forwards. He's now got Tom Mills to overtake, then Chloe Grant, maybe Jack Sherwood, who is already starting to check out. That's the problem to the outside, coming up towards Paddock Hill. Risky move here from Nick Taylor. He's a championship leader, and he backs out of it. Might try the up and under up towards Druid, but playing the longer game there. I'm liking it.
Very much so. Looking at the inside, trying to force Tom Mills into a mistake, although Chloe Grant's had a small lock up there. We saw in the first lap Nicholas Taylor try and go around the outside of Druids, made a couple of places on the brakes, but then just slithered around on the marbles on the outside of the circuit, which then lost him a couple of one of the places he gained. So still very much a net gain up to 4th place at the end of the first lap. He'll be very happy with that, but he's not done there.
Oh no, absolutely not. Not in a race like this, and not with the championship at stake. Like I said, he wants to go into Donington Park with the biggest lead he possibly can. He lost an awful lot of ground earlier on in the weekend, and he wants to instantly get back on it, up towards Hawthorn's. A defensive line being taken by Tom Mills. Jack Sherwood's already checked out by enough to almost give him the victory straight away. He has gone, and he is so fast around here.
We know how much pace he's had, especially in the races. Didn't show quite all the pace he potentially had in qualifying, didn't get the laps together, but in the races he's been up there with the fastest laps so far, and it's now a 3-way fight for 2nd place.
Yeah, it might even be a 5-way fight once Max Maserati and Waberski join into this mix. Chloe Grant at the head of it. Like she said, she's had her best result of the season in the previous races. A bit of side-by-side because Waberski's looking to the outside of Max Maserati, coming down to the final corner at Clark. He's going to go up and under potentially onto the start-finish straight. The Brabham straight just about alongside, is he? Oh, just about. You saw Max Maserati nearly came for the chop, then backed out of it and then went for it. Nick Taylor's going for 3rd place in the race. He looked to the outside once again, but doesn't commit to it. He's ahead of the important person he needs to be ahead of.
Taking the wise words from his team there, that just, you don't have to be a hero. He doesn't have to be a hero. He's got the championship lead already, a nice buffer. His championship rival is behind him. All he has to do is finish.
Yeah, we did hear those words from Richard Dutton, of course, the big boss himself. Of course, Ollie Dutton does a lot of the team managing on a day-by-day basis, but Richard Dutton's the one that's kind of running things behind the scenes. And like I said, they're both giving a lot of advice to Nick Taylor. They both believe in Nick Taylor. He is a rough diamond, but he's showing it. Here comes Tom Mills, though, looking to the outside, going up towards Hawthorns. Chloe Grant's holding that defensive line on the left-hand side, and that number 10 car, big move from Tom Mills, straight around the outside. 2nd position goes his. Might just run a little bit wide, but he doesn't. He secures 2nd position. Nick Taylor now eyes up, trying to get through. He doesn't want to get held up by Chloe Grant too much.
Tom Mills having an excellent race there, just defending. Oh no, getting past Chloe Grant, so he'll be happy with that 2nd place. And he's going to hope to try and get away from Chloe Grant as much as possible before, I think, the inevitable move from Nicholas Taylor, because the more gap he can put between himself and Nicholas Taylor, the larger the likelihood there is of him getting through. Oh, this is side by side now, Maserati and Waberski. Maserati's still really struggling with mid-corner speed.
I was going to say, the issues, whoa, yeah, that was scary. Waberski, though, super move straight around the outside. I was going to say, it does not look to me like those issues are eradicated in the hill speed car. No, Nick Taylor looking to the outside of Chloe Grant, who then, once again, backs out of it into Paddock Hill, sits behind Chloe Grant, who'll try and keep in the slipstream of that number 21 Kevin Mills racing car of Tom Mills. But considering the pace that we've seen from Maserati, I just think that it looks like he is struggling for the 2nd consecutive race.
It really is. He just doesn't seem comfortable. I was speaking to Max on camera, and he said that even in the corners, for example, like Sterling's, the left hand of the 2nd last corner of the lap, he says normally it's a pretty standard corner. Everyone goes through there about the same speed. It's not really a corner you can gain or lose a huge amount of time, and he feels like every time he goes through there, he's vulnerable on the exit, which is exactly what Waberski took advantage of.
Oh, Nick Taylor once again trying to fight. Oh, he's nearly out on the grass. Wow, 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 I'm very scared indeed. Nick Taylor straight around the outside of Chloe Grant, and he's out super wide. He gets it back onto the circuit. Chloe Grant still on the inside coming into Westfield Bend. He's starting to risk quite a lot. Now might go for the up and under as they head through Dingle Down and up towards Sheen Curve. He's starting to risk things quite a lot here is Nick Taylor.
That was so close to a potentially massive accident. He tried to hang it around the outside, following from what Sherwood and Mills have already shown the weak spot potentially for Chloe Grant is around the outside into that corner, but Chloe learning from those moves, he carried a bit more speed and forced him to go a bit wider, and he nearly went too wide enough into the barrier because that grass is very undulating. Just about kept it on the circuit, but also did not gain the place.
How good is Chloe Grant looking this weekend? After that personal best result for her in the previous race, but she's now getting the dive down the inside. It's the move that she put on in the previous race, the move that Nick Taylor puts on in this one. Boom, there is 3rd position. She left the door open. If she defended, I think she might have held on to that one, but maybe eyes are a little bit on the road ahead rather than the road behind.
Jared Waberski is right on their tail now, at Chloe Grant's tail. That shows how much time they've lost, Chloe Grant and Nicholas Taylor fighting there, because Waberski was a number of seconds back and now he's right there. Although saying that, Waberski purple middle sector in the last lap. Fastest driver on the circuit is Jack Sherwood at 26.4 on that last lap.
And Nick Taylor's just set the fastest first sector after getting past Chloe Grant, so he's already starting to clear off. He'll be eyeing up to the rear end of Tom Mills. And Wilberski will be trying to find his way through, weaving one way and the other, trying to keep himself very much in the mirrors of that number 10 Graham Brunton racing car that Chloe Grant is behind right now. Oh, he was looking once again into Westfield Bend. You really need to be properly alongside. There's a little bit wide there from Chloe Grant, though. Could there be a move up in the sheen? Again, you have to really be alongside before you send it in. It's not a heavy braking zone at all. You're kind of breathing on it going through there.
So potentially not even braking if you're completely committed through there. It's a very, very fast corner, blind entry. Track falls away on the exit. Again, that lap, Taylor. He's fastest in Sector 1. He's fastest in Sector 2. I anticipate a fastest lap overall on this lap from Nicholas Taylor. He is breathing down on the neck of the other two podium sitters currently, which is first up Mills and then Sherwood potentially if we've got enough time remaining.
Triple purple there, dealt with by Nick Taylor. He sets the fastest lap of the race at 25.9. It was 7/10 that he closed in on Tom Mills, so he's charging down. Let's see if the defensive move can still work from Chloe Grant. She's in 4th position at the moment. She's got Wilberski directly behind. They're both keeping a very comfortable gap back to Maserati. In fact, they both pulled out a gap on Max Maserati by 0.2 of a second, which means that Chloe Grant could be battling for 4th position here, genuinely, with no one else really there to close up and potentially fight some more. She's really coming on strong. That was not a good line, though.
That was a little bit wide of the apex, which has probably hampered her exit somewhat, which is why Jared Wilberski is now... That's a bit naughty from Chloe there. Jared was clearly alongside, unfortunately just squeezing him slightly, and he had to back off, but I'm sure that this fight will continue on. But Nicholas Taylor showing once again the pace he's got around here, 7/10 faster than the next fastest driver. I was looking at Jack Sherwood thinking he's got a 3-second gap, that's enough. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, that's Wilberski straight through. Dingledale ticked off and boom. Just a much better exit from Westfield Bend, so he makes his way through. Super move.
Excellent move, getting the good exit, as we heard from Callum Voisin in GB3 saying he made a loads of places, 13 places in race 1. He said, I made the move just by getting good exits, but Jack Sherwood with a commanding lead at the moment, 3.6 seconds, maybe even to extend slightly on this lap. Let's have a look. 3.6, is that going to stay the same?
I've just got to say, I've just seen Nick Taylor's middle sector. He was 6/10 faster than Jack Sherwood, 4/10 faster than Tom Mills ahead of him, just in the middle sector alone. And that is an incredible lap, a 26.0. Again, 6/10 faster than the car ahead, 5/10 faster than the car ahead of that.
Just doing some quick maths in my head, we're looking at the gap to the leader of 3.7 or 4 seconds. He actually does have time if he doesn't lose too much time getting past Tom Mills, which I know Tom Mills is a very hard car to pass, but assuming Tom Mills doesn't hold Nicholas Taylor up too much, we could see a last lap battle for the win.
I will say, I think Jack Sherwood's got a little bit of pace in the tank. He's looking in his mirror, seeing no one coming, so I think there is a little bit of that at play as well. But I mean, on the pace that we're seeing right now, you're absolutely right. Nick Taylor could close up for that. His eyes, though, surely just have to be on 2nd place, just have to be on getting past Tom Mills. And to be fair, even then, might not even need to be on that. But we know what Nick Taylor's like. We know his mentality. If there's a car ahead of him, he's got to pass it.
He's got to pass it, but he's shown great maturity in taking on that advice he's been given from his very experienced team. I mean, let's think about it. You know, the 4Tech team they've been around for decades, seeing some of the best drivers who are in the world, really, come through their ranks, and they've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they know what is required. Spoke to Richard Dutton earlier on, and he was saying, you know, to win a race is one thing, to win a championship is a whole different ball game, and Nicholas Taylor is learning that towards the end of this season. He's showing the patience, because he's been patient to get past Chloe Grant. It cost him a bit of time, but he still could get 2nd in this race, which is an excellent result considering his nearest championship rival, Max Maserati, is still currently in 6th place and not looking like he's going to move. Yeah,
it's all about the points haul. Here he goes around the outside of Tom Mills, looks back to come down the inside, but still not there. Looking once again, it's going to be a hard little fight between these two for 2nd place. It's going to allow Jack Sherwood to pull out a little bit. It was a slow exit there from Tom Mills as they head down towards Surtees, and you can see that defensive line being held from Mills as he heads up towards the apex. It means he's going to be taking a very early apex here. This could be big for Nicholas Taylor to try and get through coming up towards Hawthorns.
Yeah, it was a bit wide of the apex of Tom Mills was there, which has hampered his exit, and you can see the straight line speed of the good exit from Nicholas Taylor. Can he get around the outside once again? Tom Mills will fight this very hard, though.
This is Brave. Brave once again from Nick Taylor. He's straight around the outside. Is how he got past Chloe Grant, how he might be able to get past Tom Mills, and he's done so. Brilliant move from the number 66 4Tech machine, but he's made a little bit of a slide there, made a bit of a hash of it through Westfield. It wasn't enough, though, for Tom Mills to get back in. Super, super move from Nick Taylor.
We've seen the outside of Hawthorn's corner today has been a choice manoeuvre, getting a run, the car ahead, going to the right-hand side, trying to cover off the inside line, but the outside line is very much a viable. It's a wide entry, actually, to quite that corner. It's probably the widest part of the circuit, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so. It's quite a just because of how the corner is. You know, you're carrying so much more speed through it. It's not just about like the corner itself, it's about the run off the corner. You're normally carrying more speed. If you hold a tighter line, obviously you've got to scrub off a little bit more speed in doing so. If you're not steering as much, you're not scrubbing off as much speed, it means you can just carry that extra little bit. So the move's kind of done on that straight between Hawthorns and Westfield, and that's exactly what we saw there.
Yeah, great move from Nicholas Taylor. Again, I think the gap to the leader is a bit too much. Oh no.
Gilks is in the pit lane. Megan Gilks has come into the pit lane.
Megan Gilks. Hopefully there's not too much of an issue there. And it's been a really disappointing weekend for Megan Gilks. She's shown she's got the pace. They were really fast. Both hill speed cars were really fast at Silverstone. She was in the fight for third in the championship going into this race weekend, and unfortunately just lack of practice, lack of experience of this circuit, just a lack of experience of this circuit really has meant that this weekend has been really, really tough for Megan Gilks, and I'm sure she'll come away beaten up, but with raring to go and more determined than ever at the final round at Donington Park, where she's shown some great speed previously.
Yeah, one final round for her to really push forward again, maybe take a third victory of the season herself. Who knows? Obviously, she's had a very successful last couple of weeks after starting her work at Aston Martin and stuff. We wish her the best with that, but we can't wait to see her back on the track in a few weeks' time. Unfortunately, though, the issues here. She is back out of the pit lane, so she's still in the race, but just down in 9th position. Her teammate is closing in on Chloe Grant. We're seeing on our screen right now that we've got Max Maserati, who's closing in on Chloe Grant. The battle for 5th position. Maserati doesn't want to finish 6th again. He finished 6th in the previous race. He doesn't want any more of that.
He's going to try, and this is damage limitation, he's going to try and limit the number of points that Nicholas Taylor can pull away. If he can keep it to less than 35, that would be ideal, because that means that it's less than a race win, and that means that if he can do that if he can keep it to less than a race win going into the final 3 races of the season, then maybe just maintain that in race 1 and 2, then that means that it will go to the final race of the season, which gives him the best shot of taking the title, because obviously if we get to more than 35 points with 1 race to go, then Nicholas Taylor will be crowned the champion with races to spare, which is what Nicholas Taylor wants, but what Max Maserati wants to avoid.
Well, with the points gained on reverse grid as well, I think it would actually be 28 at the moment. Might be more for Donington. We'll discuss into the numbers next round, because of course it's however many points are left on the table is basically however many points is where the mathematical possibility is. But Nick Taylor is running away with things at the moment, and someone who's not running away with things, Tom Mills, coming under pressure from Waberski, who's set the fastest lap of the race with a 25.7. That is absolutely incredible. That is nearly a second. It's about 8/10 faster than his teammate directly ahead of him. Absolutely madness.
It's funny, some pace excellently in the later stage of this race. Maybe running different tyre pressures, or I don't know what tyre strategy. They both went with new tyres on the left-hand side, I believe, in the previous race. So similar tyre strategy from the blue and grey Kevin Mills racing cars, but we've seen them come together in the previous race. We don't want to repeat of that. I'm sure they both got a stern word of warning from Kevin Mills, because of course ultimately, even though Tom Mills is the son of the team owner, that Kevin Mills is running 2 cars, and I'm sure he runs them very, very equally. He wants his cars to do well regardless of who's driving them, but they've shown great pace. They were 2nd and 3rd in qualifying, and they're showing that pace once again. But Waberski coming on very strong in this later stages of the race.
Do you think they'll be playing on their mind at this point in the race? Have you ever come into contact actually with your teammate?
I don't think so. I don't think I have.
You're a good boy.
I try. But it's definitely something that they'll be thinking about, because of course you don't want to put yourself in that position. It wouldn't stop you going for a move if the move's on, but you might think twice about a big old lunge from a few car lengths back, or just giving a bit of extra space if you're side by side, because that was all the issues were in the previous race, was just, I think, Waberski not quite giving enough space to Tom Mills on the exit of the corner.
Waberski, by the way, is looking for quite an important thing. He's looking for, again, I've said before, his 5th consecutive podium.
Wow.
Of course, he's had a third, and then a 2nd. Well, he could have 2 seconds here. That means he has to start Donington surely with a victory. Waberski is absolutely flying at the moment. He'll be desperate. He'll be hungry for that podium. Again, the podium streak is being built up again by Jack Sherwood. He's the one with the longest podium streak of the season at 5 earlier on in the season. Waberski's looking to tie that, but he's only got 1 more lap to try and pass his teammate.
It's very close, but it's just not quite close enough as it stands. Maybe that dirty air around the back section, obviously the dirty air, the turbulent air off the back of Tom Mills' car affecting the front grip of Waberski, because they're very similar on pace when they get going. So that's maybe why the gap has stabilised at about, what is the gap now? Let's have a quick look. It's about 0.4 of a second.
Yes, indeed. Like I said, last lap of the race, they were separated by absolutely nothing, both at a 25.929. It was the personal best lap from Tom Mills, so he's responded a little bit on the time sheets, but still the fastest lap of the race obviously being set there by Waberski. I mean, we're counting off the opportunities. There aren't many more. We know that Tom Mills is very, very hard to pass. This guy's way ahead of everyone, though. Look at him. So much
over
speed
3.5 seconds, controlling the race from the front. What did I say, Lewis? It's almost like I know what I'm doing sometimes.
Sometimes. You actually, this would be 2 in a row for you.
I called Oxley, didn't I?
You did call Oxley in GB3. I got it completely wrong. So much so that I didn't even want to say Jack Sherwood. he's such a good overtaker, though. He's got so much speed.
Yeah, he's shown some excellent speed, and this will really, really give him confidence going into the final round of the season. And we'll see if he can continue that in the final round, because it would be great for him to get some more podiums and potentially victories at the final round at Donington, because we know that Elite Motorsport car is fast around there as well.
Well, looks like it's going to be very close between the Kevin Mills racing cars. We'll see Jack Sherwood through the final corner before we'll look back at that battle. Sherwood comes out of it and takes another victory. He's taken one earlier on in the season at Snetterton. It's a race 3 again, but he's had to work for it. The number 78 comes across the line for Elite Motorsports to take a well-deserved victory at Brands Hatch. Nick Taylor, second across the line for yet another podium. Tom Mills does grab 3rd. Waberski misses out on his podium streak with a 4th place. Chloe Grant rounds out a great weekend with another top 5, her 2nd consecutive top 5 in the GB4 Championship after taking her very first one in the previous race. Maserati only 6th.
Only 6th. It's still 6th place. However, he will be disappointed with that, no doubt. Those issues they've got with whatever's going on, I don't know if they know. We spoke to Maserati before the race, but he'll be disappointed with 6th place. The gap opening out to Nicholas Taylor at the front of the field. So very disappointed, I'm sure, but they will come back kicking and screaming. I have no doubt those Hillspeed cars at Donington Park for the final 3 races of the season.
Well, of course, remember that the Donington Park round being in Leicestershire. I was going to say Derbyshire, and I was going to get it. It's not. It's Leicestershire. It's got a Derbyshire postcode, but it is actually in Leicestershire. But it's their home circuit. They're based in Markham Vale in Derbyshire, so it's the nearest race circuit to them. We'll take a look at the race results. Jack Sherwood taking over another victory in the GB4 Championship, his 2nd one of the season, just ahead of our championship leader in Nick Taylor. Tom Mills, 3rd place, just, and I mean just, 0.2 of a second ahead of his teammate in Waberski before we get to Chloe Grant, Maserati and Jess Edgar, who's, I think, we're a little bit disappointed with that race. She had great pace before, and we get Logan Hannah and Megan Gilks across the line. Gilks obviously coming into the pit lane, and Logan Hannah with a stall on the start. Big shame indeed. What a moment for Jack Sherwood. What a moment for Nicholas Taylor to have taken yet another podium. I don't know how many he's up to now. I think he's up to 12 podiums. He did have, it must be 12, because he had 10 before coming into the weekend. He was joint on most podiums with Max Maserati, who leaves the weekend with no podiums. I'm actually kind of wondering if that's the first time that we've not seen Max Maserati on the podium on a race weekend. That is true. He's had 3 races off of the podium, which was between Donington Park race 2 and Snetterton race 1. He wasn't on the podium for the 3 between those. But this is the first time that we've not seen him on the podium in 3 races in 1 round. You can see Richard Dutton just coming through the foreground of shot there, going to shake some hands, obviously, keeping an eye on his boy Nick Taylor. There he is, literally in the foreground of shot, my goodness. Jack Sherwood, though, on top today, and what a glorious time to take a victory. I'm sure the picture of this is like it's a perfect time for some race photographs. So I'm sure there'll be plenty in this race that will be cherished for that man right there. And again, building his podium streak. He's very good at getting onto the podium. He had a 5-race podium streak earlier on in the season. He's looking for it again. We'll see how he feels post-race, because John Jackson is standing by.
Yeah, so we can see Jack Sherwood. Looks like it was a tough race with that little expulsion of air from him there. Still being congratulated by members of the Elite Motorsports team, now embracing Tom Leben from the GB3 Championship. Nicholas Taylor's father there, giving him a handshake. Getting the all-important hat before we have a word with Jack. If I can get in. It's all right, don't worry. I'm getting knocked over by cameramen trying to get to you, Jack. You know, you had a 2nd, you had a 3rd. It was only fair that you finished with a 1st, wasn't it?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. You know, this weekend, you know, I think it's been tough for everyone. You know, with Her Majesty passing away, but you know, everyone's tried to go on with the weekend, and I think, you know, it's been a good celebration. You know, the team have put out a mega car this weekend, and yeah, it's been a mega weekend for us as a team, not just in GB4 but also in GB3. So no, I'm happy with how the weekend went.
Yeah, and you mentioned the tribute, and there was a 2-minute silence earlier on, and I know on your car there you've got a sticker which we might be able to see, which is a memoriam to Queen Elizabeth II there, which is a nice touch as well. And we saw you there with Tom Leben from GB3, and it's been a decent weekend for both of you, and it seems like everything's very strong in the Elite Motorsports team at the moment.
Definitely, you know, I think they're, if not one of, if not the best teams in both of the championships at the moment. So, you know, it just proves these results, they can put out a mega car, not just on a one weekend basis throughout the season. So no, it's been mega. The car was so hooked up, and yeah, I couldn't have done it without them.
Now we saw finally, before I let you go to the podium, we saw you put a great move on Chloe Grant where you were a little bit on the grass there. That was a bit of a risky one, but it paid off.
Yeah, well, I wanted to clear them as fast as I could because I knew some people behind were on new tyres, so I just wanted to try and build that gap and, you know, get away with it. But no, I think, you know, the car has made it so easy to follow in dirty air this weekend, not just in that race, but in all three. So no, I'm really happy with it, and you know, I think all the team should be proud of, you know, the amount of effort they put into it.
I'm sure they will be. I'll let you go and celebrate. Jack Sherwood, congratulations. Third place, a second place, and a first place this weekend. I mean, that's a pretty good weekend for a racing driver, right? It looks like Nicholas Taylor is currently being interviewed, so let's go and speak to Tom Mills over here. Tom, we're going to grab a word with you. Not a bad weekend, a couple of podiums for you. You must be very pleased.
Yeah, very pleased obviously to get my first win in race 1. Race 2, obviously the low, you never want to be in an incident with your teammate, but that was sorted internally, and so yeah, it's great to finish back on the podium, and I'm looking forward to Donington.
And you know, it's I mean, obviously there was that incident in the second race, but in the first race, you know, both of you doing well to get on the podium there. So hopefully, you know, things are all good in the Kevin Mills Racing team.
Yeah, we respect each other. We're both young drivers who want the most, and sometimes it just went a little bit too far earlier, but you can't hold a grudge for too long. We work together, we're together all the time, so we just got on with it, and in that race we were together for a few laps at the end, and it was all good, so yeah, it's fine now.
We all make mistakes. Tom Mills, I'll let you crack on. A good weekend for the Mills family, has got to be said. Right, Nicholas Taylor, now let's talk about the wider picture here. Obviously you did so well to get from penultimate place really, all the way up to second. Very important also that Max Maserati still had those struggles that he's had all weekend. So going into this final championship weekend, there's a pretty decent gap.
I don't know what the gap is.
I don't know, it's not been worked out yet, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we got past him pretty early, and then I just try to keep ahead of him because, you know, I think him and Jared are the closest rivals, and then I got ahead of both of them. So I think just after that, it was just picking off one by one throughout the whole race.
And I think we saw a very mature when you were chasing down Tom Mills there. You know, you didn't try and make the move too early. You realised it wasn't quite on because, you know, you don't want to make a mistake and you don't want to not finish another race.
Yeah, I mean, this track is really hard to overtake. So if you want to, you have to set it up really well. I think it took a few laps, but I think we did it quite well. Tom gave me just enough space. Yeah. It was a good battle. Excellent.
Well, it's nice to see your family as well. Congratulations to the other drivers. So congratulations to you. Well done to everyone associated with Nicholas Taylor at Vortec. And I'm going to hand over to the final podium of the weekend. Lewis McGlade will talk you through it.
I have the points. Don't you worry. I mean, yes, a super performance from those out there. Cheers to John Jackson. Good looking man there, hanging on there with the clip. It is 473 points. And again, do not trust the commentator's maths, but these are the ones that I have, and the spreadsheet doesn't lie or something. 473 points for Nicholas Taylor, white and red, right there, Vortec man. 442 points for Max Maserati, meaning that it is a 31-point lead that Nick Taylor has going into the final round of the season. Now, we did hear earlier that there were discussions as to what the maximum points are. I mean, overall for a total round in the GB4 Championship, I believe, now this is where you don't trust the commentator's math, it's actually at the moment it's about 99 points. Depends how many cars we have on the grid, because obviously the reverse grid points we make. It's 35 for a race win in race 1 and race 2, so put those two together and we have it at 70 points, plus 20 points for the maximum points for a race win in race 3, of course the reverse grid race, and then obviously you get the points for gaining position. So if you have a perfect weekend on this weekend, then it's 35 plus 35 plus 20 plus 8, because that's if you started at the back, and obviously qualified on pole, and then you had the fastest time, as you start from last in race 3, you'd then gain 8 positions in the race to get up from 9th to the race lead, meaning that it would be 28 points for the final race, so it's 98 points for maximum for the weekend. We won't go into that too much because that's a lot of waffle. Basically, Nick Taylor has not won the championship just yet. Tom Mills comes up onto the podium. 3rd place finish just ahead of his teammate Jared Weberski. In 2nd position, Nick Taylor, championship leader by 31 points by my maths. And then the race victor himself. Jack Sherwood comes up to the top step of the podium for the 2nd time this season. He had a 5 podium streak earlier on. He's been doing absolutely fantastically since then. He's had 9 podiums, and to be fair, I've said it before, in the last, I think it's 13 races, he's had 9 podiums. Since he got that first podium at Silverstone race 3, he has been absolutely fantastic and received the fastest lap as well for the weekend. We'll take a look at highlights though from the race we've just seen. It was a stall on the grid from Logan Hannah as she dropped back into the clutches of those on the rear. She managed to get back going again, but right at the rear of the field. Jess Edgar was attacking for the race lead around the outside of Chloe Grant, trying to fight her way up to the top, but it was Jack Sherwood that was making the charge. Inside of Surtees, big moment. Chloe Grant chopped that one off and said no thank you. So Jack Sherwood said, I'll wait 1 corner then and I'll take over the race lead when I please. Thank you very much. Yara Weberski having a bit of a moment on the rear end of Max Maserati, and this was the switch for 2nd position. Tom Mills straight around the outside of Chloe Grant, a big move around the outside of Hawthorns. Eventually Nick Taylor would also come through before Max Maserati was struggling with the car once again, almost a little bit of contact coming through the final corner at Clark's as Weberski would take over the position. This is the big switch though for 2nd position in the race, up towards Hawthorns once again. Nick Taylor around the outside of Tom Mills, a very big move for the Fortec machine, and he'd be up into 2nd and would try and close down on our race leader Jack Sherwood. He'd come through to the final corner to take another podium and another victory. 3 podiums across the round. A super performance for him. We'll head back to John Jackson to see what's happening down in pit lane.
Yeah, well, as the sun begins to set here at Brands Hatch, it's been a pretty decent weekend of racing, I think you'll agree. And Nick's father's joined us. What's your name? Sorry, I don't actually know. Gary. Sorry, Gary. I'm terrible with names. I'm great with faces, though. It's been a decent weekend of racing, but a great weekend for Nick.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, a bit of a mistake yesterday, but recovered well today.
I think that shows also his maturity. I was just saying there, to make a mistake like that, you know, I know at the start of the season Nick had a few troubles with his starts, and he really beat himself up about it. But now, you know, he's already matured so much since then that when he makes a mistake, he'll go back and he'll think it through logically, I think. Indeed.
I mean, the starting was a problem earlier on, but we had 3 hours of actual just starting testing at the Bedford. Yeah. And that cured his problem, I think.
Honestly, when I was learning to drive, I couldn't do the clutch. I had no idea at all, and I did that on the drive with my dad. Yeah. And after that, I managed to do it. So it's literally the same kind of thing, maybe just in a slightly more extreme way. But you know,
I think we did 200 in one morning.
Okay. Well, I'm rather you than me. Anyway, in terms of the going into the final race weekend at Donington now, that kind of worked out well for Nick because Max hasn't had a lot of pace all weekend.
Yeah.
You know, do you think it's going to affect Nick going into the final weekend with a lead, or do you think that's where he wants to be?
Well, Max's dad was talking about rechecking the car because he thinks there's something drastically wrong with the car, and I hope he does, because I think that we need to have a good fight at Donington to get the thing finished, you know? Huh?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely. Have you got a question there, please?
I mean, Richard was talking about having a theme for Donington, Mr. Speed versus Mr. Consistency.
I think someone in the production truck might have to make a montage.
Yeah, why not? Indeed. Yeah.
Like an old wrestling promo we could do, maybe something like that. Hulk Hogan versus Stone Cold. Who knows?
Yeah. Brilliant. So, how does Nicholas normally sort of prepare for the races in the week?
Well, very quietly. I mean, he's obviously still at school, so he does a lot of gaming as well on his sim at home, and he probably does at least 2 hours a day on the sim. Plus he started to train some of the younger boys at the YRDA, and he does that a sim on a big sim. So I think that's how he trains really more than anything else.
Yeah, great. So a lot of effort going in behind the scenes.
Yeah, very dedicated, without a doubt. Yes.
Yeah, and we've actually seen he did race Lewis McGlade, our commentator, once or twice, and they were actually fairly competitive for about 10 seconds. We'll let you get on and go and celebrate your son.
Right, thank you
very much, Richard. Appreciate that. That was great to get a bit of an insight about Nicholas Taylor. We normally hear from Nick's mum, who's always his biggest fan and always here, but it looks like it's just his dad this weekend. I mean, look behind. It's one of those things. We always say this last race. Everyone is in a rush to get back. You know, if you're Graham Brunton Racing, you've got to get all the way back up to Knockhill in Scotland. So people tend to move away quite quickly.
Yeah.
As we just try not to get run over by Jack.
Also,
Sherwood's
Jack
car.
Sherwood, I'm not sure if we mentioned, but of course, probably mentioned the podium, fastest driver of the weekend as well. So he got the fastest lap over the whole weekend, which shows that the improvement he made from qualifying through the races. So he actually ended up as the fastest driver of the weekend. So deserved that victory on pace as well.
I've also got to say well done to you, Piers, because you absolutely called that.
I did. I did.
Smug. I like that. So let's just look ahead to Donington Park. It's the 15th and the 16th of October. It's the final round of both the GB4 and the GB3 Championship. Now, looking at Nicholas Taylor's lead, it's going to be a decent lead now, isn't it? And it's going to be really on Max to score maximum points, get that final win, maybe even needs 2 now, and for Nick to not score points, really.
That would be really entertaining if Max could get his first win of the season at the final round when it really matters. The Hill Speed car was quick there when we went to Donington Park last, so I don't see there's any reason why not. But the form that Nicholas Taylor's in at the moment, considering the only thing that tripped him up was that small mistake in race 1 due to the rain, so it's going to be very hard to beat. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. I'm hoping it goes to the wire. The gap's extended somewhat this round, so it's an uphill battle for Max Maserati. You might have to hope for something interesting, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking to Nick, just there in that interview, saying that I feel that Nick has matured so much in terms of when he was attacking Tom Mills before, he maybe would have made the move a bit earlier before when it wasn't on, and risk. There's too much risk in his driving before. But even me watching it this year, I think now he's so much more, he's measured, he knows he's got the pace, he knows he'll find a way around.
Even this weekend, I think he's moved on. And, in race 1 he was 2 seconds clear and he was still pushing on at 100%. That race, he took probably 2-3 laps to get past Tom Mills, whereas I think potentially Nicholas Taylor of 2 or 3 rounds ago may have even just sent up the inside of the first opportunity, which may have come off, which is great. But also the risk of crashing out of which at this point the championship would have been devastating for him, because he's just trying to build that championship lead, and he was already ahead of his rival Max Maserati, so he didn't need to go for the move, so he bided his time, waited until it was the right move, and then when the move was on, he pounced and then drove away and managed a lovely second place.
And well, I think we've learned a lot this weekend, and a lot has changed in terms of the GB4 and the GB3 Championship. It's set us up really nicely. I think maybe the GB4 Championship is a bit more decided than the GB3 Championship, with Luke Browning taking a lead into the final race weekend in the GB3. But
small lead.
Yeah, I think Nicholas Taylor's lead might be a little bit too much. Maybe I'll have to give up there with my thoughts that Max Maserati is going to do it. Before we head off, I do need to just say thanks to all of the marshals around the track.
Of course.
As you can see behind us here, they all seem to be wearing. I mean, marshals always like to wear funky hats, don't they? And there is a fella here wearing his tribute to Her Majesty the Queen, which I think is nice. It's the Union flag cowboy hat. It's very noticeable. I mean, a lot of people I've seen taking photos of him from the crowd. So I'm not too sure of his name, but yeah, shout out to all of the marshals who do an excellent job. And
we wouldn't be here without them.
I mean, we have long weekends, don't we? But these guys have insanely long weekends. So that's it for this weekend here at Brands Hatch. What an amazing weekend of racing we've had as the GB4 series continues into its final race of the weekend of the year. I keep getting weekend and year messed up. I need to get that right for the final race at Donington. It's the final race of the year. There we go. At Donington Park, the 15th and 16th of October. I mean, if you're free on those days, I would suggest you get a ticket and head to Donington Park, because you've seen what amazing racing we've had in the GB3 and the GB4 Championship. You can head down, you can see it with your own eyes, you can find your best spot at Donington, loads of great places to watch the racing, and if you can't, you can watch on the live stream here as you have done this weekend. For all the information for the points totals that will be decided after these reverse grid races, make sure you visit the GB3 and the GB4 websites. Make sure you follow the social media as well, as you see all the drivers sharing updates on their progress. A lot of the drivers have newsletters and things to keep you updated, so if you've picked a favourite driver, if this is the first time you've watched this stream, then you can catch up and find out what your favourite driver's up to. And that's it. I mean, driver of the weekend in terms of GB4 is the only thing we need to decide on, Piers.
I think it's still got to be Nicholas Taylor. Despite the incident in race 1, he's just had so much pace. He's increased the gap in the championship. Notable mention is Tom Mills actually had a very, very strong round as well as Jared Baberski. But I think Tom has really stepped his game up a little bit, and he's been on the podium positions pretty much every race, apart from that. Well, he's been fighting for a podium every race. Unfortunate contact with his teammate in race 2, but yeah, but I still think it's got to go to Nicholas Taylor. He's extended the lead in the championship. He's showing he's growing as a driver every single race, every single round. So I can't go to anyone else in my opinion.
And of course, we had to remember back to the qualifying where he won the George Russell Pole Position Cup. So extra £1,000 for him. He'll get that trophy next time at Donington Park, and that's the next time we'll see you for the GB3 and the GB4 Championship. It's the championship finale. We will crown 2 new champions in each division. Well, one champion in each division. You know what I mean. 15th and 16th of October. Make sure you're following GB3, GB4 online, and we'll see you in about 4 weeks' time.